It's an ongoing conversation right there. But let's find out what all of this is doing to the financial markets every day here. We give you the numbers from the NGX, from the fixed income. We see a lot of effort by the federal government to mop up a lot of this currency, well, the Naira, not the dollar in this case, through the fixed income market. Let's have a holistic conversation on the impact of this high cost of living and devaluation of the Naira on the financial markets in Nigeria. Speaking with us is Director, Research and Strategy with Chapel Hill Denham, Mr. Tajuddin Ibrahim. Mr. Ibrahim, good afternoon. Been a while. Good to have you on the show again.
Yes, good afternoon. Thank you so much for having me on.
Great. So do paint the picture for us. The government, the CBN, has been issuing circulars. We've seen a lot of pronouncements. We've heard a lot of things just to get the Naira back on track. But it seems a lot of this has failed to hit the target, and we still see the Naira falling, even though we did see a slight recovery at the close of trade yesterday. But what is this doing to the financial market? What is it doing to investors' reaction in the markets?
So to start with, thank you for having me on the show. So the way it is impacting the financial market is, let me say, in two ways. The first is that when we are looking at the financial market and the focus is on dollar-denominated investments, we realize that such investments are performing well above of the performance of Naira-denominated investments. And what do I mean by that? I mean, if you are looking at the returns on Eurobonds, you will find them to be more compelling in Naira terms. The return in dollars looks like, those returns look like something like 1% or even slightly negative in dollar terms. But when you convert those returns to Naira, you will realize that it is about 30 to 40% return in US dollar terms. And in this case, I'm even using the official market rate. So because of the 30 to 40% devaluation that we have seen in the currency this year, we notice that dollar-denominated investments are outperforming the other asset classes on a year-to-date basis. If you take the second view at the performance of securities in the market, it is to look at which are the companies that have dollar inputs. Either they have raw materials that they have to buy via US dollars, or they have dollar loan that they have in their books. Those kind of instruments are not doing well in the market. And a very good example are the consumer companies in Nigeria that have to import wheat and they have to utilize US dollars. They are facing challenges as we speak. Good example of them are those that have to import raw milk in their production. They are also seeing the same challenge. Another example are those that have dollar loan or debt exposure that are denominated in dollars. They are also facing challenges. So if you are buying into the securities of any of those companies, you are buying into securities that are losing value because of the valuation and the volatility that we are seeing in the foreign currency market. So that is the way the asset classes are behaving in terms of the development we are seeing in the foreign currency market.
Yeah, but we still see our bonds. I know we had an auction last week, and I think it was oversubscribed. We had another one yesterday. I haven't really followed the result of that. And obviously, these are Nigeria. So does this portray what's going on with the Naira, or they are separate?
They are not, largely speaking, separate. In fact, they are related, because what we are seeing is a situation where the CBN is looking to stabilize the Naira, and that stabilization calls for substantially high interest rates to ensure that our interest rates are elevated to the level that it will interest foreign investors to bring in new money. And I say new money because as we speak, we have foreign investors in the market. Those are old money that have not even been able to go out completely. We need new money to flow into the Nigerian market, and those new money externally will not flow in until we have substantially high interest rates on fixed income instruments, on money market instruments. So what the government and the central bank have been doing is to allow for elevated interest rates on Naira denominated assets such as the Nigerian local bonds, such as the Nigerian treasury bills. And high interest rates are reflected in the last auction that we had on the bond market, where we had the 10-year bond printing at 19% yield. Yesterday also there was a treasury bill auction where we had the 1-year treasury bill printing at 19% discount rate, and that looks like about 23-24%, when you are looking at it on a true yield basis. It is those level of high interest rates over time that can interest foreign investors to bring in US dollars, which at that point will help us to stabilize our currency. So what is happening in the Naira market is reflective of what is happening in the foreign currency market, because broadly speaking, as we speak, we need elevated interest rates to attract more foreign investors into the market.
So I think for like 2 days now or so, we've seen the dollar weaken. Does this help our situation? And we've seen it affect, of course, things like demand for oil, because oil becomes cheaper, for gold, it becomes cheaper, and all of that. Do we see a weakening dollar, having impacts on us, Nigeria?
Naturally speaking, a weaker dollar should be positive, for our currency, and you will see that being positive for our currency only in an environment or in a market where we have, number one, transparency. Number two, where we have the required level of discipline. Number three, in an environment where we have a market with the required level of liquidity in terms of supply. You will see stability or appreciation of your currency when the US dollar weakens in a market where you have no speculation on the currency. What we are seeing currently is a case where we have a high level of speculation in the currency market. So even if the US dollar weakens, it is not going to reflect on our Nigerian Naira. And we need to restore confidence back into the market before we will see that kind of positive development. I mean, a case where when the US dollar weakens, our own Naira will strengthen. Instead of strengthening, it was even becoming weaker, at the trade of yesterday and 2 days ago. What is very important going forward is for us to see an increase in supply. Yesterday, the CBN was in the market to sell about $85 million into the banks at the official market. That kind of a development is encouraging, but it's not enough to stabilize the currency. We need it to be a little, or in fact, substantially higher than that kind of a level. Maybe when we talk about $500 million, $300 million intervention in a day, then there will be hope around recovery of the currency.
Yeah, but I guess the question would be, where do we expect the CBN to get this $500 million? Because the CBN does not print dollars.
It does not print the US dollars, but there are sources that the CBN and indeed the fiscal authority really need to monitor to ensure that those channels continue to supply US dollars for us. Number one is the crude oil sales that we have in this country. NNPC needs to be a lot more transparent. They need to really work together with the Central Bank of Nigeria to ensure that there is high level of transparency, and also ensure that the inflows from US dollars get into the CBN and support the ability of the CBN to supply US dollars to the foreign currency market. There is no other way that we can get the US dollars from other than, in this case, to receive US dollars via export. If we leave export, the other channel to get US dollar inflow into the economy is the portfolio channel. And I talked about it earlier. That will require elevated interest rates, because it is via that foreign investors will see what we call carry trade. Carry trade in the market is a situation where you have low interest rates in advanced economies, and those low interest rates will encourage foreign investors to look for frontier markets such as Nigeria to bring their foreign currency to buy and earn high interest rates. At that point, there will be need for the depreciation of the currency to be minimal, maybe 5 to 10%. And then whatever increase they can enjoy above it is what we call carry trade. There is need for stability for them to be encouraged to want to tap into carry trade opportunity in Nigeria. And the starting point, of course, is elevated interest rates. That's the second channel. The third channel to my mind is the CBN and the fiscal authority can consider raising debt. The Eurobond market is not where we can possibly go in the immediate term, but in the second half of the year, chances are that there will be accommodative monetary policy stance in the US, interest rates in that environment will be much lower. That will give us the room to begin to think about floating Eurobonds in the second half. That is the next channel I am looking at. The fourth or possibly third channel to my mind is the domiciliary account that we have in the country. The government has spoken to possible products that will address that. If we have such a product, such like we have the Naira saving bonds, we can have the dollar saving bonds as well. And it will be targeted at domestic investors that have US dollars to invest. With that, we can also get some inflows into the market to stabilize our currency. Those are my views.
Sounds interesting, but to get Nigerians to get their dollar to invest in the government, some people might be suspicious. Are you sure this is not a trap by the government to know how much we have? But
it shouldn't be a trap, but the reality is that the dollar sitting in our domiciliary account does not earn anything. Banks do not give any interest on domiciliary balances, unlike the Naira balances. That is the standpoint I think many Nigerians should be viewing it from.
All right, Mr. Ibrahim, just before we let you go, just briefly now, you've used the word transparency like 3 times, since you started talking. What are those areas where you think transparency is lacking in the management of these FX rates and currency in the country?
So I think the starting point, honestly speaking, is from the supply side, right? And that supply side is, looking at the NNPC in this case. On several occasions, we have seen, high-profile individuals in this country talk about NNPC, where are the dollars? If that question, is not answered, and we begin to see inflow from the NNPC to the CBN as the dollar receipt, from the crude oil sales by the country, then we cannot really move anywhere, because that seems to be like the major and possibly the only source of foreign currency income for the country, because it accounts for well over 90% of what flows in terms of our FX. The next thing speaks to the demand side, and on the demand side, many Nigerians are speculating on the currency. So there is also a need for the sensitization of the public around that. If you do not need to transact in US dollars, why are you speculating? Because no matter whatever the government does, whatever the fiscal authority or the central bank does, if Nigerians keep to speculate on this currency, it is unlikely that we will see stability, as soon as we should. But who is going to bear the impact? Everybody is going to bear the impact. everybody is going to feel the impact because it is going to come in form of inflation. Because whatever Naira you hold as we speak in dollar terms, over time, you will be holding a lower value of it. Can everybody convert their Naira to dollars? That is, no, it is not going to happen. So if we do reduce speculation on the demand side, it can also, help us. Nowhere in the world will you see in a sane environment their citizens speculating on their national currency because of the negative impact it will have. It will not be the impact of the speculator alone, but it will be the impact of almost all the citizens of that country.
All right, Mr. Tajuddin Ibrahim, except in Uganda, where the citizens are asking the courts to declare their own currency illegal. Very interesting one. Well, thank you so much for your views, Director, Research and Strategy with Chapel Hill, Denham.